The 16-bit era was filled with RPGs that rivaled the classics, games that took massive risks, told unforgettable stories, and pushed hardware to its absolute limits. Some never left Japan. Others slipped through the cracks during the PlayStation transition. A few just got buried by bad timing. These are the forgotten masterpieces, the RPGs that deserve to stand alongside the legends, but got lost in the shuffle. Genesis players had their own Zelda-like masterpiece, and almost nobody played it. Crusader of Sentei, released in 1994, is an action-adventure RPG that starts as a familiar hero's journey and slowly deconstructs the entire concept, asking uncomfortable questions about heroism, perspective, and what saving the world actually means. You inherit your father's sword to fight monsters. Then you gain the ability to talk to animals, and everything shifts. Monsters are defending their homes from human expansion. Black and white morality crumbles into shades of gray. The animal companion system works brilliantly. Instead of traditional items, you recruit animals who grant abilities. An ostrich lets you jump, a penguin lets you slide on ice. You can equip two at once, and combining their powers opens creative solutions to puzzles. The system encourages experimentation and makes backtracking for secrets genuinely rewarding. Combat is simple but satisfying. Your sword has decent range, and timing dodges matters more than button mashing. Boss battles are pattern-based puzzles rather than stat checks, rewarding observation and adaptation. The difficulty curve is mostly fair, though a few late-game spikes feel cheap. Where it falters is length. It's short, around 8 to 10 hours, which feels abrupt given the narrative ambitions. Some dungeons are recycled with palette swaps, and the final act rushes through revelations that deserved more development. The game bombed commercially, released late in the Genesis's life when RPG fans had moved on. Copies are expensive now, but emulation makes it accessible. For players who appreciate subversive storytelling and action RPGs, Crusader of Sentei is unforgettable. Star Ocean is Tri-Ace's ambitious 1996 debut that tried to blend sci-fi and fantasy RPG in ways nobody had attempted on the Super Famicom. This action RPG follows a young swordsman from a primitive planet who gets caught up in time travel shenanigans, mixing medieval fantasy with starships and galactic federations. You control one character while AI handles the rest. The private action system lets you explore towns solo, triggering events that affect relationships and endings. The crafting system is absurdly deep. You can write books, compose music, cook meals, forge weapons, all with tangible gameplay benefits. Skill systems let you customize characters beyond their base classes, creating hybrid builds. The replay value is staggering. Multiple endings, missable characters, branching paths depending on choices. Where Star Ocean struggles is technical limitations. The game required a special compression chip to fit on the cartridge, and it shows. Load times between battles and areas break immersion. The frame rate dips during busy combat sequences. Voice samples are compressed to the point of distortion. The story starts strong, but becomes convoluted, introducing time travel mechanics that create plot holes the game doesn't bother addressing. Some characters feel underdeveloped despite the relationship system, and pacing drags during the middle act. Graphically, the game pushes the Super Famicom hard. Detailed sprites, smooth animations, vibrant colors. The soundtrack is excellent, though limited by cartridge space. Star Ocean never came west on SNES, only getting a PSP remake years later. The fan translation lets you experience the original, rough edges and all. For action RPG fans who love complex systems, it's a fascinating piece of history. While SNES dominated 16-bit RPGs, the Genesis had Phantasy Star 4, and it's one of the finest traditional JRPGs ever made. Released in 1994 by Sega, this is sci-fi RPG storytelling at its peak, blending space exploration, ancient evils, and political intrigue into a narrative that feels genuinely epic without relying on medieval fantasy cliches. You follow Chaz and his mentor Alice investigating strange occurrences across the Algol solar system. The story spirals into galaxy-spanning conspiracy involving immortal villains and cosmic threats. Character deaths hit hard. Relationships feel earned. Combat adds macros, programmable combo attacks between characters. Planning these combinations adds tactical depth, and watching them execute with unique animations never gets old. The game also pioneered manga-style panel cutscenes for major story beats, giving dramatic moments cinematic weight that pure text couldn't achieve. Exploration spans 3 worlds with distinct cultures. The sci-fi setting, laser swords, hovercraft, biomonsters, keeps things fresh. The soundtrack is phenomenal, but Phantasy Star 4 falters in difficulty balancing. Early game is punishing, with high encounter rates and expensive healing. Late game becomes trivially easy once you unlock powerful macros. Dungeons can feel repetitive, with similar visual design across multiple planets. The Genesis sound chip, while used well, can't match the SNES audio richness, making some tracks feel thin. The biggest issue, though, is price. Phantasy Star 4 launched at $100 in 1995, which killed sales and ensured most players never experienced it. Nowadays, it's easier to access and absolutely worth playing for anyone who loves story-driven JRPGs. Most 16-bit RPGs gave you dungeons to fight through. Lufia 2 gave you dungeons to solve. Released in 1996, this prequel to Lufia and the Fortress of Doom is less about combat, grinding, and more about puzzle-solving brilliance that borrows heavily from Zelda, while keeping turn-based RPG structure intact. Maxim discovers evil gods called the Sinistrals are rising. The story leans into cliché, but earns points for maturity. Villages get destroyed, people die. You know from the first game how this ends, adding tragic weight. Every dungeon is packed with environmental puzzles requiring tools, bombs, arrows, hookshot. Some are simple block pushing, others span multiple floors with head-scratching logic. Random encounters are gone, replaced with visible enemies. Then there's the Ancient Cave, a 100-floor randomized dungeon where you start at level 1 with nothing. Every run is different. Most loot disappears when you leave, but rare blue chests contain permanent treasures. It's pure, addictive roguelike designed years before the term existed, and I've sunk more hours into it than the main quest. The flaws are hard to ignore. Combat is too easy. Bosses rarely challenge you, and the wealth of systems, capsule monsters, IP attacks, equipment abilities go underutilized because brute force works fine. Graphics look dated even for 1996, resembling early SNES titles rather than late-era polish. The puzzle difficulty spikes unevenly, with some solutions feeling unfair without guides. Still, for players who want RPG dungeons that respect intelligence, Lufia 2 remains one of the best. The puzzles alone make it worth playing. Live Alive is one of the weirdest, most ambitious RPGs Square ever made, and it never left Japan until 2022. Released in 1994 for the Super Famicom, this experimental RPG spans 7 completely different time periods, each with unique gameplay mechanics, art styles, and stories. No other 16-bit RPG tried anything remotely this bold. There's a prehistoric chapter with no dialogue, a Wild West tower defense segment, a fighting game homage, and sci-fi horror inspired by Alien. Each feels mechanically unique. Combat uses a grid-based system where positioning and range matter as much as stats. Different eras emphasize different strategies. Some reward aggressive rushing, others punish it. Learning each chapter's unique combat style keeps things from getting stale. The variety is staggering, and just when one chapter's mechanics start feeling familiar, you're thrown into something completely new. The problem is inconsistency. Some chapters are brilliant, The sci-fi horror segment is genuinely tense. The feudal Japan chapter tells a moving story about a dying master. Others drag. The caveman chapter overstays its welcome, and the kung fu chapter leans too heavily on repetitive encounters. The final chapter tries to tie everything together, but feels rushed compared to the build-up. Visually, it's stunning. Each era has distinct art direction. Character sprites are expressive, and battle animations are fluid. The soundtrack by Yoko Shimomura is phenomenal, shifting genres to match each time period perfectly. Live Alive got a full remake in 2022, making it finally accessible. The original fan translation circulated for years, but the remake polishes rough edges and adds voice acting. For players tired of standard JRPG formulas, this is required playing. Treasure of the Ruderas is Square's final Super Famicom RPG, released in 1996 after the PlayStation had already launched. This ambitious swan song features a magic system so unique and complex that it's never been replicated. One where you literally create spells by typing words. 3 separate storylines take place simultaneously. Events in one affect the others. An interconnected narrative years ahead of its time. Instead of learning spells, you type letter combinations to create magic. Fire casts a basic fire spell. Ferreira makes it stronger. Death is instant kill magic. Experimentation is endless. Mixing syllables creates hybrid effects, and discovering powerful combinations feels like cracking a code. I spend hours just testing word combinations, which turn magic into a puzzle rather than a menu selection. Combat is traditional turn-based, but elevated by the mantra system's depth. Boss fights become word creation puzzles as you figure out which element or effect counters their strategy. The learning curve is steep, and the game does little to explain optimal strategies, but it can feel pretty repetitive. The 3 storylines share similar dungeon layouts and enemies. By the 3rd route, locations feel overly familiar. The pacing drags in places, with fetch quests padding runtime. Graphics are functional but unremarkable compared to Square's earlier SNES work. The soundtrack by Ryuji Sasai is hauntingly beautiful, one of the console's best. The game never left Japan, and the fan translation remains the only way to experience it in English. For players who love experimental RPG systems, Treasure of the Ruderas is essential. Flawed, ambitious, utterly unique. Bahamut Lagoon is Square's most obscure Super Famicom RPG, and that's criminal because it's one of the best tactical RPGs of the 16-bit era. Released in 1996, this strategy game lets you command squads of soldiers riding dragons into battle, mixing Fire Emblem-style tactics with customizable dragon evolution and feeding mechanics. The plot is standard JRPG fare, but character writing elevates it. Party banner is sharp and hilarious. The tactical combat is deep. You control squads of 4 characters plus a dragon mount, positioning them on grid-based battlefields. Dragons can be fed items to evolve in different directions: fire-based, ice-based, support-focused. The feeding system adds strategic depth beyond typical SRPG progression, and watching your dragons grow based on your choices is endlessly satisfying. Dragons change terrain, burning forests, freezing water. Weather affects effectiveness. Positioning triggers cross-attacks. The problems are significant. Enemy AI is exploitable. Baiting units into predictable patterns trivializes difficulty. Battles can drag, especially late-game maps with excessive reinforcements. The dragon feeding system, while cool conceptually, isn't well explained, leading to irreversible mistakes if you're not consulting guides. Graphically, Bahamut Lagoon is gorgeous. Detailed sprites, expressive character portraits, and battle animations that still look impressive. The soundtrack is excellent, though not Uematsu's best work. The game never left Japan, and the fan translation is the only way to play in English. For SRPG fans tired of Fire Emblem's formula, This offers something genuinely different. Trials of Mana is the game secret of Mana fans waited decades to play officially. Released in 1995 exclusively in Japan, this is Square's ambitious follow-up that took everything Mana did well and expanded it. Multiple playable characters with branching stories, class evolution systems, and real-time combat that actually feels balanced. You choose 3 of 6 characters, completely changing narrative focus, final boss, and ending. The replayability is staggering, with each character having real personality. Combat is faster and more refined. Each character plays differently. Angela casts devastating magic. Duran excels at melee combos. Hawk uses speed and agility. The class change system lets you evolve characters into light or dark paths at 2 different points, creating wildly different builds. A light Duran becomes a holy paladin. Dark Duran becomes a demonic swordsman. Experimentation is encouraged and rewarding. The ring menu system returns from Secret of Mana, and it's still clunky. Pausing mid-combat to navigate nested menus breaks flow, especially during boss fights. Magic animations are gorgeous but unskippable, which drags battles out. Enemy AI is exploitable. Bosses can be chain-stunned, trivializing encounters that should be challenging. Graphically, Trials of Mana is breathtaking. Sprite work is detailed, environments are lush and varied, and Mode 7 effects are used tastefully. The soundtrack is sweeping and memorable, perfectly capturing the high fantasy adventure tone. The game never came West officially until the 2019 collection of Mana release. A fan translation circulated for years, introducing many to what they'd been missing. For action RPG fans, this is peak 16-bit design, flawed but unforgettable. Illusion of Gaia is Quintet's middle chapter in their unofficial trilogy, and while it doesn't reach Terranigma's heights, it tells one of the most grounded, human stories on the SNES. Released in 1994, this action RPG follows Will, a young boy searching for his missing father, while uncovering ancient conspiracies tied to real-world historical mysteries. The story tackles slavery, starvation, death, with surprising maturity. Will transforms between 3 forms with unique abilities. Switching forms mid-dungeon to solve puzzles or exploit enemy weaknesses adds strategic variety. Battles are quick and punchy, rewarding timing over button mashing. The biggest flaw is linearity. Unlike other action RPGs, there's no backtracking. Once you leave an area, it's gone forever. Miss a hidden item or red jewel, and you're locked out permanently. This creates anxiety rather than encouraging exploration. The game expects you to find everything on the first pass, which feels punishing without a guide. Dungeons are well designed but short. Boss battles are memorable but inconsistent in difficulty. The pacing is uneven. Some chapters feel rushed while others drag. There's no equipment system, no shops, no grinding. Progression is entirely linear, which some love for its streamlined focus and others find restrictive. Visually, Illusion of Gaia is beautiful. Detailed environments, smooth animation, expressive character sprites. The soundtrack is atmospheric and melancholic, perfectly matching the somber tone. For players who want a story-driven action RPG with real emotional weight, Illusion of Gaia delivers. It's flawed, linear, occasionally frustrating, but it tells a story worth experiencing. Terranigma might be the most ambitious 16-bit RPG that North America never got. Released in 1995 by Quintet as the finale to their unofficial trilogy, this action RPG follows Ark, a troublemaker who accidentally freezes his entire village and must resurrect the surface world to fix his mistake. The twist? You're not just saving the world, you're literally creating it piece by piece. You revive plant life, then animals, then birds, and eventually humanity. Civilizations develop in real time, prehistoric tribes becoming industrial cities. Towns thrive or collapse based on your choices. The game explores life, death, and religion versus science with rare maturity. Combat is fast and responsive, built around spear attacks with satisfying weight and timing. Arc moves fluidly, and battles feel more deliberate than button mashy. The magic system uses limited charge Magiroks that need constant refilling, which makes them more annoying than useful. I found myself ignoring magic entirely and sticking to melee most playthroughs. But Terranigma stumbles its pacing. The first half, reviving continents and life, feels epic and purposeful. The second half bogs down in fetch quests and slow town-building segments that kill momentum. Difficulty spikes inconsistently, with some bosses trivial and others brutal. The ending is hauntingly bittersweet, but polarizing. It doesn't give closure so much as it leaves you sitting with complicated emotions. Visually, this is peak SNES. Mode 7 effects, layered parallax scrolling, gorgeous sprite work, and a soundtrack that shifts from triumphant to melancholic perfectly. Terranigma never came to North America because Enix closed its US branch before localization finished. For fans of philosophical action RPGs, it remains essential.